Hello, and welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Fintech Fridays. Yeah, that's the name of it. I'm Brian Vieaux, President and Chief Operating Officer of FinLocker, and joining me for this episode is Kelly Yale. Kelly is the Director of Innovation and a Divisional Vice President at Neo Home Loans. Kelly, welcome to my humble little podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I've been excited to have this conversation for quite a while because you have a very unique perspective to bring to the podcast. Not normally, because I don't want you to feel like this is an abnormal podcast, but typically I'll talk to other, fintech providers or folks in the space. And I always love getting a different perspective on technology, especially technology and mortgage. And you've been on both sides of the table, so to speak, as a provider and as a consumer of technology. And today you're wearing a very interesting hat at Neo, right? You're joining and you're responsible for kind of leading innovation, which we're going to get into what that really means in a minute. But you also have a team. You have what is it, 10 or so teams, branches that are under your purview, so to speak.
Yes, yeah.
So you're kind of making the dog food, and you have to eat the dog food, and that's just a super cool place to be. And really excited to kind of dig in there and talk about all the good, bad, and indifferent that comes with that. But first off, thank you again for joining. I think you've maybe watched one or two of my episodes, so you know the drill. It's a pretty casual conversation. And let's start with why Neo, right? You made a pretty big move here recently, and maybe start there.
When I'm fairly on record, I built a pretty comprehensive marketing and digital marketing strategy and CRM solution for a mortgage company for many years. And when I left there, I had already had my own company, and we had a marketing agency then that was specifically for mortgage. And I just thought, I'm not ever going to work at another mortgage company again. I have a pretty great company. I'm surrounded by great people. This is just not. I don't want to go in-house again. And I just didn't, I just honestly and truly felt like that wouldn't happen. And one of the stranger parts of my story for the last couple of years is that as it would turn out, I'd always known Ryan Grant, and he had been crafting essentially the exact same product that I was crafting. And yet we'd never crossed paths. And I used to tell people like, gosh, I did this. I was successful for this. And almost 100% of the company used it, except for like a couple people. And the couple of people who didn't use it happened to be Josh Metal and Ryan Grant, who I now work with every day. So it's ironic. But I started listening to Ryan, and I started realizing how aligned he and I were. And then I started paying more and more attention to Josh. And I was like, gosh, these people are really thinking about not the mortgage. If this isn't about a mortgage anymore, it's not about a transaction. Actually, hasn't been in a long time. It's about creating a space within the consumer that understands that the guidance that they receive from their mortgage planner is not a one-stop. This is something where we can have conversations yearly to discuss how you're using your equity, right? Being part of them understanding finance as a whole, really being part of their journey forever. When that started kind of seeping into me more and more, and I was thinking, gosh, you're speaking to my core. You're talking about what I do and how I try to help with technology, with marketing, to make sure that they understand. Eventually, I got to the point where I just started believing so much in the mission that I genuinely wanted to be aligned with it.
Love it.
So that's how I got here. And it's also really, really fun, as you know, to work at what is essentially a startup.
Yeah.
The passion and the vision and the culture that is created when you are all in the trenches and you're all aligned and you know you're part of the next really special thing, you
Yeah.
it's a big thing.
Fun is one word.
Okay, so I mean, I can't imagine how many startups you've been part of.
Many.
How many did you say?
Two.
Two startups. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been a part of about probably 5 or 6 now.
Yeah.
And they are, I don't know. I have to be honest, Brent. Maybe it's the entrepreneurial spirit in me, but there's something about that ground floor, about understanding at such a base level the heart and the soul that people bring, because you can't count on the people who are with you at the first steps. Those are your soldiers forever.
Yeah.
You know, and so for me, that's such an exciting thing. And then, there's a lot of cliche things that are said in mortgage. I mean, everybody's mortgage, date the rate, marry, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
All the things, right? It's the same thing again and again. And you'll hear somebody say, like, we're doing mortgages differently, or we're changing the mortgage industry. And you're like, okay, sure, okay.
Yeah.
But when you see changing the mortgage industry in practice, and a absolute adherence to the ethos of that, it's a different story. So that's what I've been pretty inspired by that.
Well, we, as you know very well, we're tied at the hip with the Neo team and Art of Home Ownership, and the team there has been really helpful in a short period of time, helping us kind of reshape the FinLocker product. So we're big fans for sure, because we'd love to see it's the people in the trenches whose clients are using the app that are giving the best feedback. It's rock solid and it's spot on. So thank you and the team for that, and we're going to ask you to continue to give that to us, because it's super helpful.
I would say that I'll be surprised if you haven't had this experience. I have been extraordinarily lucky for the past 10 years to have been able to really personally know and befriend so many incredible CEOs in the mortgage tech space. And I feel like there's some kind of magic between us. Like we get a shorthand with each other. And it's in those collaborative moments, right? And you and I met before I took the job at Neo. And so, and I was like, oh, hey, let's chat this out. Let's talk, buddy. Like, I get this. Being able to, what makes you, not to jump around, but, when you think about the director of innovation role, people think like, what is that? Is that technology, whatever that is? And the best way that I can describe what it is that I do is I'm a really good translator. And I learn your technology and I work with you so that you can tell me, this is what our technology does. And then I go to the entire population of the loan officers and I say, tell me for real. Who downloads it, who uses it, where your success is, show me this, who's our best user, who's our worst user. And then I come back to you and I go, I get it now. This is how it folds in. This is where your tech crosses over with this tech. This is how we can eliminate that from happening. This is how we best utilize your technology at the right part of the consumer journey and then beyond. And that's kind of what I do. That's a very specific role that not a lot of companies seem to fill.
No, I mean, I came from some very large, national organizations that didn't have that role, that didn't have that discipline. Forget the role. They didn't have the discipline to start. I love that. So and I already know this, but just for the audience, you understand mortgage tech as well, if not better than most, because you take the time to understand the component players in the ecosystem. So when you walk into Neo day one and you're kind of handed off, here's all the stuff, Kelly, that we have, like, where do you start?
That's such a good question. So, I spent my years in consulting that same way. So I would go into a mortgage company and I would say, what is your tech stack? And I would make them whiteboard it. And then I would show them and I say, that's not your tech stack. And they say, well, sure it is. And I say, I bet you have 3 times more than this. And then they start building it out and building out and building out. And by the time the whiteboard is full, their minds are blown.
Right.
Now, I could go down 10 lanes of conversation here, everything from like they're trying to have 6 CRMs at a company to everything else. But let's just say I'm working with Neo, right? And I walk in and I say, where are we?
By the way, put a pin in that six CRM because we're going to come back to that.
I'll talk about it all day long. Aligned technology is my favorite conversation to have because if companies had any idea how much money they waste on unused tech, oh my gosh. Anyway. So the first step is analyzing the tech stack and what is actually used versus what people say that they're using. Now, those are separate conversations, right? So at this company, they had 3 CRMs. Okay, now I have to figure out, and it's not because I can't change an LOS, not on day one. I truly can't replace a POS that they're used to using without, a pretty good game plan and knowing what the contract on that is. And so the things I really have to figure out are, can we boil down some of the tech to what is our CRM platform? What customer success, stuff do we need in the middle, whether that is, people wanting to have list reports, if somebody wants to have Home Scout, you name it, over on the realtor kind of end. And then what else do we really need that's going to be smart for the consumer to have? For Neo, it is their tech stack is FinLocker, Simple Nexus, Encompass, and then they had a couple CRMs. They were using Jungo and what is now Adium, which is Daily AI's new rebrand. And then they had a couple other ones. So you have to look at that and you have to ask yourself, which CRM am I solving for? Right. Is this the right CRM to plug at this company? And is any of the feedback that I'm going to receive about these CRMs, and this is systemic, this is all companies. Yeah. What I'm going to hear is this tech doesn't work. But what I need to understand is, 1, did anyone set up this technology correctly to begin with? 2, what kind of consumer experience is built into that so that there's at least communication strategies and workflows created? And 3, why isn't it serving the need? Once I ascertain that, then I can very quickly solve. People will describe me as a bulldozer. And that's true. I move very, very, very fast once I understand the stack. And then I want alignment around what it is we're going to do. So that's the easiest way I can kind of describe like the analysis. So I've done that in the last 4 weeks. And you've seen me in meetings and I've been like, okay, I've got to understand it all. I've got to ingest it all. And the reason I actually have to do that is because I cut my teeth this way. I stood up a technology at a company where I did not have internal support doing it. So I had to meet and learn all of my integration partners myself. Then I had to pay for all of my own integrations for that system. Yeah. So I really then had to get to know my vendors because I was beg, borrowing, and stealing. And a lot of times what I would find myself doing was kind of trading off maybe intellectual property, talent, leveraging whatever I could with my vendor partners to see if they could help me as well. It felt, like a bunch of startups feeling like a startup. But that was it. So it was challenging to learn how to do it that way. But because of that, it gave me this very bizarre skill set that I can take into these situations because I know what technologies do, what lane they belong in, who the front runner in that tech is, who's up and coming that's going to be smart to work with so that you're not overpaying for something that is going to be stalled in their own roadmap because of funding or any kind of thing like that, or just an over-promise, under-deliver, which is a big thing, right? And then, so what's going to be smart? What can we afford? What's smart? What, all the things that you have to do to figure out what's going to work together.
I love it. I love the fact that because you've done what you did at the, roll up your sleeves level in your early days, I'm guessing it's built kind of your discipline going forward. And I can say that from experience because you've dug into the FinLocker product and really have gotten I think a really good understanding of all the different components of it, the piece parts and how they work together and how they impact, customer experience. How do you then pivot from that initial assessment to prioritizing, like, what's first?
Mhm.
What's that decision look like?
So the first decision we had to come to was whether or not we had the right tech in the right place. And the second piece was these this technology stack has to be integrated.
Yeah.
I feel like almost everywhere I go, that is one of the biggest hurdles for a technology team to understand how valuable. It's not just about them talking, right? It's about how do we glean the best of FinLocker into the customer experience. It's not just about push pull. Okay, I don't need to know this. I need to know the whole picture. Okay, if I'm
Yeah.
looking at if I'm looking at you inside my CRM, I need to know everything about you, Brian, right? I need to know that you did 2 loans with me and these were the referral partners. And I need to know I did 1 refinance, but because I have data from Sales Boomerang, I know that you can eliminate PMI. So I really need to get you on the horn so that I can do that. Oh, also, I seen you out on the FinLocker app and you've been using this calculator to look at different things. So maybe we're having a different conversation. But since I have this data, why don't I go ahead and push a button and get a TCA sent over to you so you know what refinancing is going to look like. Now, there's not a lot of people in the world who understand what I just said, but that's a loan officer's every day. And what happens is so loan officer X, they feel all the time like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm in a terrible market. I'm having a hard enough time getting loans through the door. I've got 8 pieces of technology I'm supposed to learn. They all have a different sign-in. They all do different things. None of them talk to each other. I can't wrap my head around one, much less 4 of them. And now I'm also supposed to take 2 of them and teach other people how to use them?
Right.
Well, that's not a normal ask. Who else does that? Who else professionally says, hey, I need you to be good at your job as well as 3 other jobs? It's just, I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah, no, I love that. And then now wrap around what you just described, and you kind of hit on this with the market, but wrap around the reality, the reality of what market we've been in now we're getting on 8 months in this market. And it's not likely to change significantly in the next few months anyway. So in the meantime, as a lender, you still have this stack.
Right.
You still have, contracts and minimums and all of that. At what point, from your seat as the director of innovation, do you have to make suggestions that we start cutting back some of these tools, right? And what does that look like, and what does that pushback from the field feel like?
I'm going to get in trouble. I feel it. Here it comes.
Don't name any names of any or favorite companies, please.
Never.
I don't need to get canceled.
Never. I truly believe that aces belong in their places. And I truly believe that listening to the needs of salespeople is incredibly important. But I don't agree with the concept that, just because loan officer X, Y, and Z want this CRM or this solution that costs X, what those people don't understand is the total cost of supporting them. Yeah. Okay, so technology has to support that. And I know people will say, no, they don't, because this CRM can not go right to them. Really, how's that working out for you? How's that customer service doing? It is what it is. So, half of the technology out there is impossible for a loan officer to try and configure. And so while it's important to listen to people, I think that mortgage companies would actually do well to start saying this. We have all of these amazing tools. We understand that you need a lot of them, but it's going to be our job to present for you a best-in-class solution where we are collaborating on that solution and that it is a best-in-class stack. And I know for the past few years, it's been anything goes and yes is to all, but we're in a not being able to say yes environment.
Right.
we have to have some boundaries. And I don't know, I feel like it's okay for the company to say, now I don't think it's okay for the company to wake up one morning and say, hey, guess what, we're not supporting any of these CRMs or any of this other technology anymore, because the impact to someone's business when they stop using a technology is profound.
Oh yeah. And the impact to the business, depending on the level of production of that group of individuals that are impacted, could be impacted because they could just take the ball and go, right?
Exactly. So I would say that, companies who are having to eliminate any sort of tech for really need to ask themselves first, what will be the impact on the lives of the loan officers who are still trusting our company to carry them through the storm? And
Yeah.
then, is there really usage behind those technologies, or do they just feel like something's being taken away? And in
Right.
my world, what I do all the time, and I'm doing it right now at Neo, is I'm not ever going to tell you you can't. I'm going to tell you, here's something better that I really want you to use. Because the realities are, if you would have been using a fully integrated stack with data intelligence built into it, we would be having a very different conversation in this market.
Yes. 100%
So
agree.
it's tough, right? Because what you're trying to show them is we're already behind by years. And what I want to give you is current, and what I'm thinking about is future. But you've got to trust that the person who you have doing that really knows what they're doing. And I don't know, when you have we've had a lot of turnover, we've had a lot of people in technology and marketing lose their jobs. I don't know that there's, that kind of appetite or that kind of even need. They're trying to keep up with what they're keeping up with. So I don't actually know what happens.
So I have a thesis or a theory or a guess or whatever. um, I believe that in this current cycle, which is brutal, no doubt about it, but in this current cycle, companies of all sizes are being forced to make very tough decisions, on the people side, on the channels that they operate in, and certainly with the technology that they contract with, right? And I believe what's going to happen is because we will see another other side of this
Sure.
cycle. It may not be COVID impacted like that last 24 months was, but there'll be something. I don't think we're going to see people race to hire tons of processors and underwriters. They're going to be using today to build processes and refine processes and layer in the right technology so that when that next cycle comes, it's a matter of scaling what you already have. And so I'm already seeing this happen, and I'm having these conversations almost daily. I just came from a lender event where I sat in 2 panel sessions that talked exactly about what you and I are talking about here. All the lenders are looking at, let's pick on CRM,
Sure.
sorry, but they're looking at why do we have 2 or 3 or 4 CRMs across our business? And the mandate's coming from the top, starting at the CFO saying, what are we doing here? We need to get to 2 or 1, and you got 6 months or 12 months to get there. And once they do that, I don't see them going back. I don't see this thing going back the other way, because I think companies that do what Neo has done and brought someone like you in to kind of architect this, I'll call it customer and originator experience, you'll never need to do it again, because you will have built what I believe will be best in class across your technology. And if one component of that doesn't stand up as best in class, you're going to swap it out with whatever that other one is. Am I thinking about that right?
I think you're thinking about it right. I think it's all going to depend on, so the way I've always viewed sales and the relationship of mortgage and sales, right, is we tend to say yes and sure you can and whatever you need. When times are good, there's just not a no. And I don't know I don't know. Does that come back when the market comes back? I don't know. I would think like you do. I genuinely do, but I can tell you, I know an awful lot of mortgage companies, and a lot of them have really talented human beings, but filling a role where you understand how to eliminate technology and how to understand how that technology works while simultaneously understanding what sales needs, that is a very particular critter in most places. And so I don't know if companies, smart companies for me right now, right this very second, are eliminating needless tech. They're finding their collaborators in their leadership who are truly aligned around what is the next step for this company in terms of how we show up, in terms of how we treat our referral partners, in terms of giving the best consumer experience. If you have a team of people who can do that, who are truly putting ego aside and just really building that system, then you probably should double down right now. Spend the next 6 to 9 months, 12 months creating that for your company. But this thing of everyone being in their own lane, think about it, having built a solution that almost an entire company used. So with over 2,000 people are using simultaneously. The thing that I got to play with and fix all the time, think about all the time, was that bubble, was that tech stack, right? How it interacted. I got to A/B test my own stuff. So that was an interesting sort of incubator and lens into the world. So my thought process around how people can kind of get there is you have to start having boundaries with your salespeople. You have to have people who understand how to solve the problems that you are going to have once you start taking stuff away. And you 1000% have to understand that moving data from point A to point B is not picking up a CSV file and tossing it in a system. There are incredible communication strategies that need to be deployed day one when you put someone in a new system. You cannot just put a database in something and hope it churns. If you're an enterprise company, you have to be thinking in terms too of, what are my data rights? How am I making sure everyone is compliant? How am I making sure that our ethos and our core values and our repeatable process is the same in Boston as it is in San Diego? And then how do we put together the branded vision of this company through all of this technology?
That's a lot. There is a lot there. The good news for you and I, Kelly, is we're going to do this again, because we haven't even scratched the surface on kind of the psychology that you have to kind of think through with your two different hats. But I'm also very keen and aware of my audience's attention span, and we probably already went 6 minutes past the typical, mortgage ADD attention span. But this has been super helpful. I've learned a bunch here. I wrote down a couple notes on topics I want to bring back to this podcast. So I'm hopeful that I didn't waste your time and that you'll come back and spend another 20, 25 minutes with me.
Oh, I would love to. And psychology in mortgage, and especially from a buyer perspective, even from a loan officer perspective, is one of my most favorite topics. So I would be happy to chit chat with you about that, because it's very interesting to try and navigate personalities and try and navigate best solutions and try and think about a cohesive approach for lots of people to use. So there's lots of fun psychology we can chat about.
I've got an idea, so we're gonna come back to that one. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you again to the audience for stopping by this Friday. Come back next Friday for another episode of Fintech Fridays.
Thanks so much.